His attorney leaned in and whispered just 5 words, and Marcus's face went white. That arrogant face, the one I looked at for 14 years across our kitchen table, completely drained of color. His hands started trembling, the documents he was so desperate to sign, shaking like leaves in a windstorm. And me? For the first time in almost 3 years, I smiled. But I'm jumping ahead. Let me rewind, because you need to understand how we arrived here, how a woman everyone assumed had lost everything actually played the smartest game of her life. My name is Elena Mitchell. I'm 35 years old, and until 3 months ago, I was married to Marcus Brennan. 14 years of marriage. That's longer than most Hollywood couples last, longer than some businesses survive, and definitely longer than my sanity should have hung out. But I'm persistent. I inherited that from my grandmother. I met Marcus when I was 18, fresh out of high school, not because I was brilliant, but because I needed independence from my family. I landed a job at a legal office, Carter and Associates. Entry-level pay, endless paperwork, but it was mine. By 19, I'd climbed to paralegal assistant. I was sharp with details, sharp with finances, good at staying quiet and observing everything. Marcus was 25 when we crossed paths, charismatic, driven, overflowing with grand plans about creating a property development company. He spoke about success like it was already his destiny, like achievement was just sitting there waiting for him to collect it. He said he was going to create something extraordinary. I said I'd handle the administrative work. Love story, right? We married when I was 20. Our son Jake arrived when I was 21. I continued working part-time at the firm, growing my retirement account, tucking away every extra dollar. My grandmother used to say, a woman must have her own resources. Not hidden resources, just her own, something that can't be taken. At 24, Marcus's venture finally launched. He asked me to leave the legal office, said he needed someone managing operations, someone he could depend on entirely. So I transformed into his unpaid workforce: accountant, operations director, client relations manager, design consultant for his property showcases, brand strategist, event coordinator. I handled everything while raising Jake, running our home, keeping everyone comfortable and content. My actual title was spouse. My real title was everything else. For 10 years, I invested myself into Marcus's vision, and for 10 years, he collected all the recognition, the trophies, the prestige, the ongoing standing ovations. At every industry function, I was simply Marcus's wife. At every achievement celebration, he acknowledged his colleagues, his influences, his determination, but somehow never quite remembered to acknowledge me. Before we go further, smash that subscribe button and leave a comment telling me your location. I actually read them all. Gradually, things shifted. He began making choices without consulting me, working later and later, finding fault with small details, how I presented myself, the dinners I prepared, my lack of drive. Lack of drive. I was managing his entire operation without payment while raising his child. But yeah, not driven enough. Then, 3 months back, he detonated the grenade. And what he didn't realize, what nobody realized, was that I'd been strategically planning for this exact scenario for nearly 3 years. Because I'd discovered something concealed in his records, something he believed was buried permanently. And when he finally made his play, I was completely prepared. But before the explosion, before the separation, before everything shattered, there were 14 years of what I believed was a real partnership. And the day it all crumbled started like any ordinary Wednesday evening. It was a Wednesday evening.
Early September. I was in the kitchen making dinner, chicken parmesan, his favorite dish, because apparently I enjoyed unappreciated labor. Marcus walked through the door around 6:30, loosened his tie, set down his briefcase, and sat across from me at our dining table. He had this look on his face, not upset, not apologetic, just businesslike, cold. "Alina, I want a divorce." The words hung in the air, like smoke, like poison. I stopped cutting the tomatoes, knife frozen mid-slice. He kept talking. "I want the house, the vehicles, the business. All of it. You can keep Jake." He said it like he was ordering takeout. "I'll take the assets, hold the child, thanks. Keep Jake." Like our 14-year-old son was some leftover obligation, like he was doing me a favor. I just stared at him. 14 years of building a life together, and this was the ending. At our dining table, between the fruit bowl and the napkin holder, like I was just another item getting discarded. What I didn't know then, what I wouldn't discover until weeks later, was that Marcus had been orchestrating this for months. He already had legal representation, Kenneth Hartwell, expensive, ruthless. He'd been constructing his exit plan while I was grocery shopping and scheduling his car maintenance. I'd been completely blindsided by the man I trusted with everything. The next morning, his mother appeared, Patricia Brennan, a woman who'd treated me like hired help for 14 years, arrived with her salon-perfect hair and her rehearsed, concerned expression. She touched my hand gently, told me I should have worked harder to maintain his happiness. "Men have certain needs, sweetheart," like she was explaining quantum physics to a toddler. Patricia's relationship advice was always entertaining, considering her own husband spent every waking hour at his office specifically to avoid being home with her. But sure, I was the failure. That first week felt like drowning. Marcus relocated me to the spare bedroom. He had legal papers prepared, settlement offers drafted, timelines established. Everything moved so fast, like a train I couldn't stop. Everyone saw a woman whose entire world had imploded, a wife being discarded after 14 years of dedication, a victim who never saw it coming. But here's what they didn't know, what Marcus didn't know, what nobody suspected. 3 years ago, I'd stumbled across something buried deep in his business financial records, something he thought was concealed forever. And from that moment, I'd been quietly, patiently, methodically preparing. If you're hooked on this story, drop a like right now and tell me in the comments what you think Marcus was hiding. Your theories keep me going. Within days of his announcement, Marcus seized complete control. The guest bedroom became my permanent space in what used to be our home. My closet shrank from walk-in to 2 measly sections he graciously permitted me to keep. The message was crystal clear. This isn't your house anymore. This isn't your life. Within 2 weeks, he started bringing her around. Chelsea Morgan, 28 years old, worked at his development company. Of course she did. She had that social media perfect aesthetic, honey blonde extensions, designer athleisure wardrobe, manicured nails that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. She walked into my kitchen like she already owned it, and then she did something that made my blood run cold. She wore my apron, my grandmother's vintage apron, the one thing in that house that truly mattered to me, while making her protein shakes in my blender. Chelsea was younger than my marriage, younger than my favorite handbag, but she made excellent smoothies, so I guess Marcus found his upgrade. What he didn't find was what I'd hidden in plain sight. Marcus paraded Chelsea around like a championship trophy. They'd sit on my couch, watch my television, eat off my dishes. He'd wrap his arm around her right in front of me, like I was furniture, like I'd already vanished. The humiliation escalated every single day. First, he canceled my credit cards, all of them, said I'd been spending irresponsibly. I hadn't bought anything for myself in 6 months. Then he cut off my access to our joint bank account, left me with exactly nothing. $0, 0 cents. Said I could ask him if I needed anything. Ask permission, like a child requesting allowance. Then came the real masterpiece. He invited people over. Friends, business associates, family members. Threw a little gathering at our house. Well, his house now. And he introduced Chelsea as his partner. Not his girlfriend. His partner, right there in our living room, while I stood in the corner holding a tray of appetizers I'd been ordered to prepare. I wasn't the ex-wife. I was the help. Patricia stood near the fireplace, smiling like this was all perfectly normal. Her son had finally found someone appropriate, someone young, someone who didn't ask questions or have opinions, someone who knew her place. I served cheese and crackers to people I'd known for years, people who wouldn't make eye contact, people who suddenly found their phones very interesting. Marcus's business partner, David, at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, but he didn't say anything. Nobody did. That night, after everyone left, after Chelsea drove away in her white luxury SUV, I sat in the guest bedroom and called my grandmother's number. She'd been gone for 8 years, but I still had her voicemail saved. "You've reached Dorothy. Leave a message and I'll call you back when I'm good and ready." Her voice, strong, unshakable, exactly what I needed to hear. I played it 17 times that night. Quick pause. If this story is hitting you right in the feels, comment below what you would have done in Elena's situation, and don't forget to subscribe. The next morning, Marcus had new demands. I needed to be out of the house during his business meetings, couldn't be seen around when clients visited. Bad optics, he said, makes things awkward. So I started spending my days at the public library. Free Wi-Fi, quiet tables, nobody asking me questions. I'd sit there for hours, researching, planning, documenting everything. Every financial record I could access, every email I'd saved over the years, every text message, every receipt. Because 3 years ago, when I found that buried secret in his files, I'd started building something. A case, a strategy, an exit plan he'd never see coming. See, Marcus thought he was 10 steps ahead, thought he'd planned the perfect divorce, take everything, leave me with nothing, ride off into the sunset with his younger model. What he didn't realize was that I'd been working at a law firm for 5 years, Carter and Associates. I'd watched dozens of divorces play out, seen every manipulation tactic, every hidden asset strategy, every dirty trick, and I'd learned from all of them. Marcus had money. Marcus had lawyers. Marcus had confidence. But I had something better. I had information. 3 years' worth of carefully collected, meticulously organized, completely damning information. And I had patience, the kind of patience you develop when you've spent 14 years being invisible, when you've been overlooked so many times you've learned to see everything while being seen as nothing. Marcus wanted everything in the divorce, and I was going to let him have it. Every single penny, every asset, every debt, every buried secret, all of it. Because what Marcus called everything wasn't actually everything, not even close. But he was about to find out the difference in the most expensive lesson of his life.
Let me tell you what I found 3 years ago, the thing that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October. Marcus was at a conference in Phoenix. Jake was at soccer practice. I was home alone, organizing files for tax season. Marcus always handled the business finances himself, said it was too complicated for me to understand. But he'd asked me to scan some documents for his accountant, old bank statements, loan agreements, property records, standard stuff. I was feeding papers through the scanner, one after another, when I noticed something odd. A mortgage statement for a property I didn't recognize, 1270 Riverside Terrace. We didn't own anything on Riverside. I pulled up our property portfolio on the computer. Nothing. No listing, no record. Curious, I kept digging. Found another statement. Same address, monthly payment, $4,200. Then I found the loan documents, a second mortgage,
taken out 18 months earlier, $640,000, against our primary residence, our home, without my signature, without my knowledge. My hands started shaking. I kept searching, found more. A line of credit, $280,000, maxed out. Another personal loan, $95,000, all secured against properties we supposedly owned together, all hidden. Then I found the Riverside property deed. It wasn't a rental investment, it wasn't a development project, it was a condominium, downtown. 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, granite countertops, city views. Purchased 2 years prior, and the utility bills, they told a different story. High electric usage, cable, and internet. Someone was living there. I sat at that desk for 3 hours, going through everything, finding more secrets. Credit card statements for accounts I'd never seen, charges at restaurants I'd never been to, hotels, jewelry stores, florists. A pattern emerged. Marcus wasn't just hiding debt, he was hiding a whole separate life. Before we continue, hit that like button if you're already furious on Elena's behalf, and tell me in the comments, would you have confronted him immediately or played it smart? I didn't confront him, didn't cry, didn't scream. Instead, I did something smarter. I copied everything, every document, every statement, every receipt, every email I could access. I created a secure cloud folder, password protected, backed up in 3 different locations. Then I started documenting current activity. I tracked his phone location. With his permission, actually. We'd set up family tracking 2 years earlier for safety. He'd forgotten it was still active. I watched him. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, Riverside Terrace. Saturday afternoons, Riverside Terrace. Sometimes Sunday mornings, Riverside Terrace. I hired a private investigator, used money from my old savings account, the one Marcus didn't know existed, the one my grandmother told me to open when I was 23. Always keep something he can't touch, she'd said. The investigator's report came back in 2 weeks. Photos, timestamps, evidence. Marcus had been seeing someone for over 2 years, a woman named Amber Rodriguez, 29 years old, marketing consultant, living in the Riverside condo, rent-free. But here's the thing, I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I wanted strategy. Because I knew Marcus, knew how his mind worked. He'd never divorce me while things were good, too expensive, too complicated. No, he'd wait until he could flip the narrative, make me the problem, make himself the victim. And when he finally made his move, when he finally asked for that divorce, then he'd think he was in control, think he had all the power, think he was walking away clean. But by then, I'd have documented everything, every lie, every hidden account, every secret property, and I'd be ready to hand him exactly what he asked for, along with everything he desperately didn't want. So for 3 years, I waited, smiled, cooked dinners, played the perfect wife, while building a case that would destroy everything Marcus thought he'd built. And then he brought Chelsea home.
When Marcus brought Chelsea home, I knew the endgame was beginning. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. He wasn't just flaunting a girlfriend. He was replacing me, publicly, deliberately, cruelly. And that meant the divorce was coming, right on schedule. I'd spent 3 years preparing. Now I just had to play the part, the devastated wife, the blindsided victim, the woman who never saw it coming. So that's exactly what I did. I cried when he told me to move to the guest room. Real tears, too. Not because I was heartbroken, but because I was finally so close to freedom. I begged him to reconsider, asked what I'd done wrong, pleaded for marriage counseling. He ate it up. Told me it was too late. Told me he'd moved on. Told me I should have tried harder. Patricia watched the whole performance from the living room doorway, nodding approvingly at her son. He's finally standing up for himself. You've held him back long enough. I let them think I was broken.
Let them think I had nothing. Let them think I was powerless. Meanwhile, I was meeting with my own attorney. Not Kenneth Hartwell's caliber, I couldn't afford that, but someone good. Rebecca Torres, 48 years old, 20 years of family law experience, and a personal hatred for cheating spouses. Her ex-husband had pulled the similar tricks. She took my case at a reduced rate, said she wanted to help. I showed her everything: the hidden mortgages, the secret condo, the line of credit, the personal loans, the credit card statements, the investigator's report. She went quiet for a long moment, just staring at the documents. Then she looked up at me. "How long have you known?" "3 years. And you didn't confront him?" I waited. She smiled. Actually smiled. "We're going to destroy him." Quick break. If you're loving this revenge story, smash that subscribe button and drop me a comment telling me the pettiest thing you've ever done after a breakup. No judgment here. Rebecca explained the strategy. We'd let Marcus think he was winning. Let him demand everything. Let him lowball the settlement offers. Let him get greedy. The greedier he got, the worse it would be for him. Because in our state, debts acquired during marriage are considered joint responsibility, unless you can prove they were hidden with intent to defraud. And oh, could I prove intent. Marcus thought he was taking everything: the house, the cars, the business, the bank accounts. What he didn't realize was that he was also taking all the debt: $640,000 in secret mortgages, $280,000 in maxed credit lines, $95,000 in personal loans, plus penalties, plus interest, plus the accounting nightmare of unwinding his shell companies. Over $1.2 million in hidden liabilities. And because he'd hid them, because he'd forged documents, because he'd committed financial fraud, it would all be his problem, not mine. Rebecca filed a motion for full financial disclosure, standard procedure. Marcus's attorney, Kenneth, responded with basic statements: the house value, his business equity, our joint savings. Everything visible, nothing hidden. We waited 2 weeks. Then Rebecca filed a second motion, requesting forensic accounting. Kenneth objected immediately. Unnecessary expense, fishing expedition, harassment. The judge, a woman named Lorraine Chavez, 56 years old, twice divorced herself, wasn't having it. She ordered full disclosure. Every account, every property, every debt. Everything. Marcus went pale when Kenneth told him. I watched it happen during a mediation session, saw the color drain from his face, saw him whisper something to Kenneth, saw Kenneth's expression shift from confident to concerned. They requested a continuance, needed time to compile records. Judge Chavez gave them 3 weeks. 3 weeks for Marcus to squirm, 3 weeks for the reality to set in. 3 weeks to realize that the wife he'd underestimated for 14 years had been 10 steps ahead. During those 3 weeks, Marcus tried everything: intimidation, guilt trips, even sent Patricia to beg me to drop the forensic accounting. But I'd waited 3 years for this. I wasn't stopping now. Marcus tried every trick in the book during those 3 weeks. First came the anger. He cornered me in the kitchen one evening. "You're being vindictive, Alina. This is ridiculous. We can settle this like adults." I looked him calmly. "I'm just following the court's orders, Marcus. Full financial disclosure. That's what the judge wants." His jaw clenched. "You're trying to embarrass me." "I'm trying to get what's fair." He slammed his hand on the counter. "You want fair? You've lived in my house for 14 years, spent my money, enjoyed my success, and now you want to take half of everything I built?" I didn't respond, just went back to loading the dishwasher. He stood there, breathing hard, waiting for me to engage. I didn't. After a minute, he stormed out. Next came the guilt trips. He'd find me in the guest room, sit on the edge of the bed, use that soft voice he used to use when we were young. "Remember when we started out, Elena? We had nothing. We built this together. Why are you doing this? I look at him, really look at him. You asked for everything, Marcus. The house, the cars, the business. I'm just making sure we both know what everything includes. He shook his head, disappointed, like I was being unreasonable. Then he'd leave. Then Patricia got involved. She showed up on a Saturday morning, let herself in with the key Marcus had given her, found me folding laundry in the guest room. Alina, sweetheart, we need to talk. She sat down uninvited. This forensic accounting thing is going to cost a fortune. Legal fees, accounting fees. It's wasteful. I kept folding. The judge ordered it. But you could drop it, tell your lawyer you've changed your mind. Marcus would be so relieved. We could settle this quietly, keep it in the family. I set down the shirt I was folding, looked at her directly. Patricia, with all due respect, this is between Marcus and me. Her face hardened, that pleasant mask slipping. You're being selfish, thinking only of yourself. What about Jake? Do you want him to see his parents destroy each other in court? Jake will be fine. He's strong, like his mother. She stood up, smoothed her skirt. You're making a terrible mistake. Marcus has been very generous with you. Don't push him. Then she left, heels clicking on the hardwood, door slamming behind her. If you're Team Alina right now, drop a like and comment Team Alina so I know you're with me on this. Chelsea tried too. That was the most interesting attempt. She approached me at the grocery store, week 2 of the waiting period. I was in the produce section, picking out tomatoes. She appeared next to me. Designer workout clothes, perfect makeup, fake smile. Hey, Alina. I turned, said nothing. She fidgeted with her basket. Look, I know this is awkward, but Marcus is really stressed about all this legal stuff. I continued examining tomatoes. He told me you're demanding forensic accounting. That seems excessive. I put 3 tomatoes in my bag. The judge ordered it, not me. Yeah, but you could drop it, right? I mean, do you really need to drag this out? I finally looked at her, really looked at her. This 28-year-old girl who thought she'd landed a successful older man, who had no idea what she'd actually walked into. Chelsea, do you know about the Riverside condo? Her expression flickered. Confusion. What condo? 1270 Riverside Terrace, 2 bedrooms, city views. The place where Amber Rodriguez lived for 2 years before you. Her face went white. Who's Amber? I picked up my grocery bag. You should ask Marcus about his real estate investments. I'm sure he'd love to explain. Then I walked away, left her there, frozen, finally understanding she wasn't special. She was replaceable, just like I'd been, just like the next one would be. But unlike Chelsea, unlike Amber, I wasn't going to disappear quietly. The 3 weeks ended, the forensic accountant's report came back, and the hearing was scheduled. Marcus walked into that courtroom thinking he still had control. He had no idea his entire world was about to collapse.
The hearing was scheduled on April 14th, a Thursday morning, 9:30 a.m., courtroom C, Judge Lorraine Chavez presiding. I wore a navy blue dress. Simple, professional. No jewelry except my wedding ring. I wanted to look like the devoted wife, not the calculated strategist. Marcus wore his most expensive suit, charcoal gray, Italian, custom tailored. He wanted to look successful, powerful, in control. Kenneth Hartwell sat beside him, leather briefcase, confident posture, ready to win. Rebecca Torres sat beside me, simple notebook, calm expression, ready to destroy. The courtroom was nearly empty, just us, the lawyers, the judge, a court reporter, and one forensic accountant, Gerald Pemberton, 62 years old, 35 years of experience, and a reputation for finding things people desperately wanted hidden.
Judge Chavez entered. We all stood. She sat. We sat. Let's proceed. Kenneth started with his opening statement. Your Honor, this is a straightforward dissolution of marriage. My client, Marcus Brennan, is a successful property developer. He's built a thriving business through hard work and dedication. Mrs. Brennan contributed as a homemaker and mother, which we absolutely respect and value. Mr. Brennan is prepared to offer a fair settlement, $50,000, primary custody of their son Jake, and Mrs. Brennan keeps her personal vehicle. He said it like he was being generous. $50,000. After 14 years, after building his entire operation, after everything. Judge Chavez looked unimpressed. She turned to Rebecca. Miss Torres? Rebecca stood. Your Honor, we reject that offer, and we'd like to present the forensic accounting report. Kenneth objected immediately. Your Honor, this is unnecessary. We've provided full financial disclosure. Judge Chavez held her hand. I'll decide what's necessary, Mr. Hartwell. Mr. Pemberton, you may proceed. Quick pause. If your heart is racing right now, hit that like button and comment your prediction. What do you think the accountant found? Gerald Pemberton stood, adjusted his glasses, opened his laptop. Your Honor, I've completed a comprehensive review of Mr. Brennan's finances, and I've discovered significant undisclosed liabilities. Kenneth shifted in his seat. Marcus's legs started bouncing under the table. Mr. Pemberton continued. First, a second mortgage on the primary residence, taken out February 2021, $640,000, never disclosed to Mrs. Brennan. Marcus whispered something to Kenneth. Kenneth's expression tightened. Second, a commercial line of credit, $280,000, maxed out, used for personal expenses, also undisclosed. Third, a personal loan, $95,000, from a private lender, secured against business assets, also undisclosed. The judge was taking notes, her expression growing darker. Fourth, a residential property at 1270 Riverside Terrace, purchased March 2020, valued at $420,000, current mortgage balance $370,000. This property was occupied by Miss Amber Rodriguez until approximately 8 months ago, rent-free, utilities paid by Mr. Brennan. Marcus's face was bright red now. Kenneth was scribbling notes frantically. Additionally, I found evidence of multiple credit card accounts, undisclosed, combined balance $68,000. Charges include restaurants, hotels, jewelry purchases, and travel expenses, none involving Mrs. Brennan. Judge Chavez looked up. Mr. Hartwell, did your client disclose any of these debts in his financial affidavit? Kenneth stood slowly. Your Honor, if I may have a moment to confer with my client. No. Answer the question. Kenneth swallowed. No, Your Honor. These items were not included. Judge Chavez's eyes narrowed. That's perjury, Mr. Hartwell. Your Honor, I was not aware. I'm not talking about you. She looked directly at Marcus. Mr. Brennan, you signed that affidavit under oath. Marcus stood, tried to look confident, failed. Your Honor, I can explain. Sit down. He sat. Mr. Pemberton, what's the total undisclosed debt? Gerald checked his notes. $1.4 million, Your Honor, plus accruing interest and penalties. The courtroom went completely silent. You could hear Marcus breathing, short, shallow, panicked. And that's when Kenneth leaned in and whispered those 5 words, the ones that made Marcus's face drain of all color, the ones that changed everything. She can claim fraud and walk away. 5 words, and Marcus finally understood. He wasn't just losing the divorce, he was losing everything, and I was about to walk away completely clean.
Kenneth's whisper was barely audible, but I read his lips. She can claim fraud and walk. Marcus's hands started trembling. Those papers he'd been so eager to sign, shaking like leaves, his face completely drained of color.
Kenneth continued whispering urgently, explaining the situation, the nightmare scenario. If I claimed financial fraud, which I absolutely could, I could be released from all marital debt, every penny, every loan, every hidden account. All of it would become Marcus's problem, only his. Not joint, not shared, his. Meanwhile, any assets acquired during the marriage, even hidden ones, could still be considered community property, subject to division. Marcus could lose the Riverside condo, could lose equity in the business, could be forced to liquidate everything, and still be drowning in $1.4 million in debt, alone. Rebecca leaned over to me, whispered quietly, "Do you want to go for the throat? We could push for fraud charges, criminal charges." I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. "No, I just want out." She nodded. "Smart. Cleaner this way." Judge Chavez was reviewing the forensic report, page by page, her expression growing more severe. Finally, she looked up. "Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Brennan, I'm going to make this very simple. We have clear evidence of financial fraud, deliberate concealment of marital debt, perjury in sworn statements, and what appears to be a pattern of deception spanning multiple years." Marcus opened his mouth. "Your Honor, I'm not finished." He closed his mouth. "Mrs. Brennan, you have grounds to request the court release you from all undisclosed marital liabilities. Do you wish to pursue that?" Rebecca stood. "Yes, Your Honor. We formally request full release from any debts not properly disclosed during this proceeding." Judge Chavez nodded. "Granted." Marcus looked like he might vomit. Kenneth put a hand on his shoulder, steadying him. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "given the severity of Mr. Brennan's deception, I'm awarding Mrs. Brennan her requested settlement. She gets the personal vehicle, full custody of Jake with reasonable visitation for Mr. Brennan, and," she looked at her notes, $75,000 to be paid from liquid assets within 60 days. Kenneth stood quickly. "Your Honor, my client doesn't have $75,000 in liquid assets. Then he'll need to liquidate something." "But, Your Honor," "Mr. Hartwell, your client concealed $1.4 million in debt while offering his wife $50,000. I consider $75,000 remarkably generous under the circumstances." Pause for a second. If you think Judge Chavez is a legend, comment "Judge Chavez for President" right now. Judge Chavez wasn't finished. Additionally, all undisclosed debts, all hidden liabilities, all fraudulent accounts, those remain solely Mr. Brennan's responsibility. Mrs. Brennan bears no obligation to repay any debt she was not made aware of during this proceeding. Is that clear? "Yes, Your Honor." Rebecca was almost smiling. Marcus looked defeated. Kenneth looked destroyed. "One more thing." The judge's voice was ice cold. "Mr. Brennan, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for review. Financial fraud is a serious crime. You may face additional consequences beyond this divorce proceeding." Marcus's head snapped up. "Criminal charges? That's not my decision, but the DA will review the evidence. You should consult with criminal counsel." Kenneth was scribbling frantically now, making notes, planning damage control. Too late. Way too late. This court finds that Mr. Brennan engaged in deliberate financial deception. He concealed substantial marital debt, he committed perjury, and he attempted to defraud his spouse in these proceedings. Therefore, the divorce is granted. Terms as stated. Mrs. Brennan is released from all undisclosed liabilities. Mr. Brennan retains all hidden debts and faces potential criminal prosecution. We're adjourned. She banged the gavel. The sound echoed through the courtroom. Final. Absolute. Done. I sat there for a moment, just breathing. 14 years, 3 years of planning, months of humiliation, and it was over. Just like that. Rebecca squeezed my hand. "You did it." I looked across the courtroom. Marcus was slumped in his chair, head in his hands. Kenneth was packing his briefcase, already calculating his exit strategy from this disaster. And me? For the first time in 3 years, I smiled, really smiled. Because while Marcus thought he was taking everything in this divorce, what he actually took was every debt, every lie, every hidden account, and every consequence. And I was walking away free. But the courtroom victory was just the beginning, because what happened to Marcus after that hearing, that's when karma really went to work.
I stepped outside into the April sunshine. The sky was impossibly blue. The air was warm, fresh. Behind me, through those courthouse doors, Marcus was still sitting in that courtroom, probably arguing with Kenneth, probably making excuses, probably realizing his entire world had just imploded. Ahead of me was something new, something smaller, simpler, but completely, entirely mine. Rebecca walked with me to the parking lot. "How do you feel?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. Free. She smiled. "You earned it. 14 years of marriage, 3 years of planning, months of strategic silence, and it was finally over." We shook hands at my car. She gave me her card. "Call me if he causes any problems. Custody issues, payment delays, harassment, anything." "I will. Thank you, Rebecca, for everything." She nodded. "Women like you who fight smart instead of fighting loud, you're my favorite clients." Then she walked to her own car, left me standing there, in that parking lot, holding my purse, holding my freedom. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, just sitting, processing. My phone buzzed, a text from Jake. "How'd it go?" I smiled, typed back, "It's over. I'm free. See you tonight." 3 dots appeared. Then, "Proud of you, Mom." I cried then, right there in the courthouse parking lot. Happy tears, relief tears, 3 years of holding everything inside, finally releasing. If this moment is hitting you in the feels, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything. The collapse happened faster than I expected. Within 1 week, Chelsea moved out. I heard about it from Jake. She packed her stuff in the middle of the night, left a note. "This isn't what I signed up for." Apparently, dating a successful businessman was appealing. Dating a bankrupt fraud facing criminal charges, less so. The designer kitchen she'd loved so much sat empty. Within 2 weeks, Marcus tried selling the house. But when you owe more than something is worth, there are no buyers. Just banks calling about missed payments, just realtors suggesting short sales and foreclosures. The house that was supposed to be his prize was now his anchor. Within 3 weeks, the business started collapsing. Vendors hadn't been paid in months. They started filing lawsuits. Contractors put liens on properties. The commercial line of credit got frozen. No more operating capital, no more cash flow, no more business. The company Marcus spent 15 years building, the company I spent 10 years supporting, was crumbling into dust. Within a month, Marcus was meeting with bankruptcy attorneys. The man who'd bragged about his real estate empire. The man who'd promised Chelsea a luxury lifestyle. The man who'd told me to enjoy the poverty was now calculating which assets he could shield from creditors. The answer was almost nothing. Patricia's perfect golden boy was calling relatives, asking for loans, showing up at family gatherings with excuses, with explanations. Nobody knew about the debt. Alina must have sabotaged the business somehow. She tricked me. But the documents told a different story. The mortgages had his signature. The loans had his signature. The hidden accounts had his access codes. All his choices, all his consequences. I heard Patricia's annual Christmas letter was very brief that year. Marcus is exploring new opportunities. Yes, opportunities in bankruptcy court. Meanwhile, certain other situations resolved themselves with poetic timing. Amber Rodriguez, the woman from the Riverside condo, apparently contacted Marcus 2 weeks after the hearing. She'd heard about the divorce, heard about the debt, and she had questions about the $28,000 in loans he'd given her. Loans she assumed were gifts. Loans he now desperately needed back.
That conversation, according to Jake, who somehow heard everything, did not go well. Amber told him exactly where she could stick his repayment demands, then she blocked his number. Diane Mitchell, my former best friend of 20 years, also reached out. She called me a week after the hearing, voice shaking, apologizing, saying she had no idea things were so bad. But I didn't answer, because some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Diane called 4 more times, then she stopped, and I imagine she's still waiting for Marcus to notice her. She'll be waiting forever. But the person who surprised me most was Jake.
Jake finally understood everything. Not because I explained it, but because he figured it out himself. He saw the court documents, heard his father's excuses, watched Chelsea disappear, watched Patricia scramble, watched the entire facade collapse. One evening, about a month after the divorce, he came to my apartment, the small one I'd rented. 2 bedrooms, modest kitchen, secondhand furniture. Nothing like the house, but it was mine. He sat on my thrift store couch, looked around at the space, then looked at me. "You waited 3 years?" His voice was quiet. "You knew the whole time and you just waited?" I set down the tea I was making, sat beside him. "I wanted to make sure you were protected, Jake. Whatever happened between me and you, I needed to know you'd be okay." He was quiet for a moment, processing. "The trust fund? You set up a trust fund?" I nodded. $540,000, completely separate from the divorce, completely untouchable. Started building it when you were 8. His eyes widened. That's from your grandmother?" "Some of it, yes. She left me money when she passed, told me to use it wisely, told me to protect what mattered. You were what mattered." He looked down at his hands. 14 years old, almost 15, trying to process everything. "Dad doesn't know about it?" "No, and he never will. That money is yours, Jake, for college, for your future, for whatever you need. Nobody can take it. Not your father, not the courts, not anyone." He was quiet again. Then he did something he hadn't done in months. He hugged me, really hugged me, the kind of hug that said everything words couldn't. "Thank you, Mom." I held him tight. "You don't have to thank me. This is what parents do. We protect our kids." Real quick, if you have an amazing mom, or if you are an amazing mom, drop a heart emoji in the comments. Let's celebrate the real heroes. After Jake left that night, I sat in my small living room, looking at my grandmother's photo on the shelf. The recipe box sat next to it. The one thing Patricia had tried to take. The one thing that mattered most. "You were right, Grandma." I said it out loud, to the empty room, to her memory, about everything. Keep your own money. Know your worth. Never let anyone make you small. The apartment was quiet, peaceful, nothing like the massive house I'd lived in for 14 years. But this place, this small, modest space, was mine. Every paint color, every furniture choice, every decision, mine. My $75,000 settlement arrived 6 weeks later. Marcus had to liquidate stocks to pay it, took a massive loss. But Judge Chavez had given him 60 days. He made it with 2 days to spare. I used the money strategically. First month's rent and security deposit on a better apartment, paid in full. Basic furniture that wasn't falling apart, a reliable used car to replace the one I'd been driving. And I enrolled in interior design classes at the community college, the dream I'd abandoned at 24, when Marcus asked me to quit my job, when I became his unpaid everything. Now, at 35, I was finally building my own future. My first semester started in September. Color theory, spatial design, client relations, business fundamentals. I was the oldest student in most of my classes, surrounded by 20-year-olds. But I didn't care. I was there for me, not for anyone else. My first real client came through a referral, a woman named Linda, 53 years old, just ending a 30-year marriage, standing in her empty new apartment, looking completely lost. She asked me the question I'd asked myself so many times: how do you start over? I thought about it, really thought about it. One room at a time, one choice at a time, one day at a time.
We painted her kitchen sage green, my grandmother's favorite color, the color of new beginnings. Linda cried when she saw it finished. Happy tears, she said. It feels like hope. I understood exactly what she meant, because that's what I'd been building for 3 years. Not a legal case, not a revenge plot, but hope. The kind that comes from knowing your worth, from protecting what matters, from refusing to be small. My little interior design side business started growing. Word of mouth, referrals, women rebuilding their lives. And then, 3 months after the divorce, Marcus showed up at my door. It was a Saturday afternoon in July, 3 months after the divorce finalized. I was organizing fabric samples in my apartment, preparing for a client meeting on Monday. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Jake was at his friend's house. I opened the door, and there stood Marcus. I barely recognized him. He'd lost weight. Not the healthy kind, the stressed, not eating, falling apart kind. Dark circles under his eyes. His suit was wrinkled. His expensive watch was gone. He looked like a man who'd been through hell and lost. He stood there in my doorway. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he broke the silence. "Elena," his voice was hoarse. "Can we talk?" I leaned against the doorframe, didn't invite him in. "What do you want, Marcus?" I didn't know it was this bad." He ran his hand through his hair. "The debt, the business collapse, all of it. I made mistakes. I know that now. I stayed quiet, let him talk. But I didn't mean for it to get this out of control. I thought I could handle it, thought I could fix it before anyone found out, before you found out." Still, I said nothing. He shifted uncomfortably. "Chelsea's gone. The business is bankrupt. The house is in foreclosure. My mother won't return my calls. I'm living in a 1-bedroom rental, driving a 10-year-old sedan. Everything I built, it's gone." "Good." The word came out calm, cold. His head snapped up. "What?" "You heard me. Good. Elena, please. You stood in our kitchen 3 months ago and told me you wanted everything. The house, the cars, the business. Everything. You got exactly what you asked for. That's not fair." "Fair?" I cut him off. "You hid $1.4 million in debt. You lied to me for years. You cheated. You humiliated me. You paraded Chelsea around our home. You told me to enjoy poverty. And now you want to talk about fair?" He looked down, couldn't meet my eyes. "I was wrong. Yes, you were. I need—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "What do you need, Marcus?" "Help. I need help." "Stop right here. If you think Elena should slam the door in his face, comment slam it. If you think she should hear him out, comment listen. Let's see what you would do." I looked at him, really looked at him. This man I'd loved for half my life. This man who'd thrown me away like trash. This man who was now drowning in his own choices. "Maybe we could figure something out," he said, desperate. "Maybe we could, I don't know, maybe we could—" He couldn't even say it, couldn't ask for what he really wanted. My help, my forgiveness, my rescue. After everything. "You asked for everything except Jake." I said it calmly, evenly. "You got exactly what you wanted. Elena, please." "Goodbye, Marcus." I started closing the door. He put his hand on it. "Wait, just wait." I looked at his hand, then at his face. "Move your hand." "Elena, move it, now." He pulled his hand back. I closed the door, locked it. He stood in the hallway. I watched through the peephole. He didn't leave right away, just stood there, staring at my door, probably hoping I'd change my mind, probably hoping I'd open it, probably hoping I'd save him. 1 minute passed, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Finally, he turned and walked away, shoulders slumped, defeated, broken. I stepped back from the door, went to my kitchen, made myself a cup of tea, sat on my couch, and smiled. Not because I enjoyed his suffering, but because I'd finally stood my ground. 14 years of making myself smaller. 14 years of putting his needs first. 14 years of being invisible. And I'd just closed the door on all of it. That evening, after Jake came home, I didn't tell Marcus's visit to him, didn't burden him with it. He was dealing with enough, adjusting to 2 homes, processing his father's downfall, navigating high school. He didn't need my drama too. Instead, we ordered pizza, watched a movie, laughed at stupid jokes, just existed together, mother and son, in our small apartment, building our new normal. Later that night, after Jake went to bed, I looked at my grandmother's photo again, the recipe box beside it. I opened it, found the card I'd placed inside 3 years ago, the day I discovered Marcus's secrets. It was a note I'd written to myself, in my grandmother's recipe box, among her handwritten cards for pot roast and apple pie. It said, "When he finally comes crawling back, and he will, remember this. Remember what he took. Remember what you're worth, and close the door." I'd written that note 3 years ago, knowing this day would come, and when it did, I was ready. But Marcus wasn't the only ghost from my past who tried to come back.
Patricia tried a different approach. She went through Jake. 2 weeks after Marcus showed up at my door, Jake came home from a weekend visit with his father, dropped his bag in the hallway, sat down at the kitchen table. "Mom, we need to talk." I turned from the stove. "What's wrong?" Grandma Patricia cornered me today at Dad's apartment. I kept my expression neutral. "What did she say?" "She wants me to give you a message. She says she didn't know about the money problems, says she's sorry for how she treated you, says she wants to talk." I turned back to the stove, stirred the pasta. "And what did you tell her?" Jake was quiet for a moment. Then, "I told her you're busy building your life and you don't have time for excuses." I turned around, looked at my son, this incredible 14-year-old kid. "You said that?" He nodded. She didn't like it, started crying, said I was being disrespectful. "But Mom, I watched what she did to you, how she treated you, the garbage bags, the insults, everything. And now she wants forgiveness just because Dad's life fell apart?" I walked over, sat beside him, took his hand. "You don't owe her anything, Jake, and neither do I. Some people apologize because they're actually sorry. Some apologize because they want something. Patricia wants her perfect family image back. That's not my problem anymore." He squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you, Mom, for standing up for yourself, for not letting them push you around." I squeezed back. "I'm proud of you too, for seeing through it all, for being wise beyond your years." We sat there for a moment, mother and son, a team. Last call for engagement. If this story touched you, hit subscribe and comment "New Beginnings" to celebrate Elena's freedom. My interior design business kept growing, slowly, steadily. I wasn't getting rich, but I was paying my bills, building a client base, creating something that was mine. Women rebuilding their lives became my specialty. Divorce survivors, empty nesters, widows starting over. I understood them, understood what it meant to reinvent yourself, to start from nothing, to build something new from the ruins. 6 months after the divorce, I got a call from Rebecca Torres, my attorney. "Elena, I thought you'd want to know. The DA decided not to press criminal charges against Marcus." "Why not?" "Not enough evidence of intent. He claimed ignorance, said he didn't understand the financial implications. His lawyers argued he was incompetent, not criminal." I laughed. Actually laughed. "So he's officially stupid instead of criminal?" "Apparently. But he's still bankrupt, still facing multiple civil lawsuits, still destroyed financially. Good enough." Rebecca paused. "You sound at peace." "I am.
I got what I needed: my freedom, my son, my future. Everything else is just noise. She smiled. I could hear it in her voice. You're one of the strongest people I've represented, Alina. I hope you know that. I learned from my grandmother. She taught me that strength isn't about fighting loud. It's about knowing your worth and never settling for less. We said our goodbyes, hung up. I sat in my small apartment, looking around at what I'd built. Modest furniture, sage green kitchen walls, my grandmother's recipe box on the shelf, photos of Jake, my design portfolio on the coffee table. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Completely, entirely mine. That evening, I wrote a new note, placed it in my grandmother's recipe box, right next to the old one. It said, "You were right about everything. A woman needs her own money, her own dreams, her own voice, and most importantly, she needs to know when to close the door and when to open a new one. Thank you for teaching me both." I closed the box, set it back on the shelf, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt completely free. Not because Marcus lost everything, but because I finally won something that mattered: myself. Thank you so much for watching this story. If you want more revenge tales and life lessons, click the video on your screen right now. You won't regret it. See you in the next one.